With like the only enjoyment I get out of making streams like this is fucking around on my wee intros at the start. So obviously with the title of this stream, do understand that the vast majority of people that will end up watching this will do so at a later date. And it's just a bit unfortunate that you feel compelled to like have to do streams as opposed to just like clipping the stuff in the video that I'm going to show. You know, like I'll just give you a brief example of what I'm talking about here, like on my actual channel. If I go on to my Resisting Allies channel for a second, and come to my videos, and what you'll tend to find, I notice this one's done pretty well, all things considered. I've got like 2,000 views on that video. You know. Anyway, though, so New Scots integration strategy, albeit that's not really to do with education per se, but like 100 views. That one, the political grooming of the Scottish youth, 50 views. It's like, it's not even worth my fucking time clipping this stuff, you know? There's only so much you can do, like, but if you keep scrolling down, there's other examples. It's quite depressing, really, at times. It's like some of the stuff that gets a lot of views, I don't even know who's sharing that material, to be honest. Like, why have I got a video of John Swinney being heckled in Arness that's got nearly 8,000 views, but yet videos about education and whatnot, like that, for example, 144 views. I mean, it's just baffling to me. So that's why I sort of feel sometimes the best course of action is to do streams, because even if like the streams themselves whilst I'm live don't do the best in terms of view count, they have a tendency to do no bad after the fact, especially the last few that I've done. They've managed to sort of surpass the 500 view mark and whatnot, which is a lot better than a video that's more than likely going to get like 30, 40 views, you know. So anyway, let's see what is what. So, hello, Mr. Woodlander, and hello, Margaret. See, thank you for that. But what annoyed me about that is that I didn't realize, really, it's been like that long. I used to make videos all the time, but I barely upload anything with my own commentary unless it's in stream format. And as a result of that, I've kind of, my laptop must have just over the course of the months updated and whatnot, and settings might have gone back to default or whatever the case may be. So my mic sounded quite quiet. I didn't notice it when I was listening back to it briefly in the Xbox, but like when I put it on the laptop, I was like, fucking hell. So that's a bit unfortunate, but hey ho, it is what it is. So yeah, anti-racist education. I'm most certainly no stranger to this topic. It's something I've spoken about for quite a few years now. I've got a whole playlist dedicated to these bastards, in fact. And I came across yet another video from them. It's not one of the main culprits, you know, your proverbial Kajida Mohammeds or Melina Valderedi, etc. This is just a bunch of, it's always women. I'm sorry to say it's always women. Just a bunch of Glaswegian teachers who've taken it upon themselves to prepare a webinar session. And they kind of go into a bit of detail as to what's being done in Glaswegian schools to, you know, help further the cause towards achieving that sweet, sweet, sweet anti-racist society that we're all desperate for. And of course, again, just to preface, a wee caveat, they always hide behind their little slogans of anti-racism. So at face value, you might assume that what that really means is just don't be a dickhead to brown people, but you have to scratch beneath the surface as usual. And on top of that, we're talking about children here. Like, this is what fucks me royally off. Every single week, without fail, there is some meddling and or interference occurring in academical settings in Scotland, always targeting children with their political bullshit, and they always disguise their bullshit with fluffy little words. And anti-racist is really no different, to be quite honest. Blue Bear, don't think I've ever seen you here before. I might have, I'm not sure. Anyway, I might as well get to it. Right, so here's the video here, okay? And I haven't watched the whole thing of this. I've skimmed through it, and what I've seen was enough to fuck me off to the point where I was like, right, I'm gonna have to stream. So here we go.
Okay, so about 2 years ago now, I undertook training with Education Scotland on a training course called Building Racial Literacy,
and don't worry, I'm going to try my best to not do that thing where I pause all the time, right? But just off the jump, especially for that guy here who says he's a first timer, Building Racial Literacy, as I said, there's a playlist on my channel that you can go and find. The Building Racial Literacy program is a program, a Scottish government funded critical race theory program that was specifically set up post George Floyd. They said directly on their website, and it was there for quite a while until I made videos on it, and then they scrubbed it from the website, but I've got all the videos anyway. It's explicitly stated on their website that they were going to reform Scottish education via or using a critical race theorist framework, right? Then they've got all these people on their wee panels, such as Kajita Muhammad, etc., 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 right? They're all critical race theorists. Every single one of them are critical race theorists. So this woman here has one of the very many participants that has taken part in this program since its inception. And part of the program, once they've come out the other side of the program, is that they have to take what they've learned in said program to their school. So this bitch, and that's what she is now going to sit here and try and explain to everybody who's listening just what she learned and what she's going to do going forward to promote anti-racism, building racial literacy, taxpayer-funded shite. Of course. Here we go, eh? Here we go, like.
quite a big course now across Scotland, and it's for teachers and practitioners from universities, from unions, from schools, and it's in how to engage with anti-racist literature and how to bring that into our classrooms and engage our learners in anti-racism as well. And this slide I have stolen from that course, and I think it's a really important slide, and it's important anytime I think that we're discussing racism or anti-racism with a group of people, and it's about creating safer, braver spaces. And basically what it means is throughout this session that I'm going to have with you, I do understand that it might, it might cause some negative emotions from some people, because we might talk about some things that might make people feel uncomfortable. So there might be a bit of discomfort. And so if that happens, it's okay to remove yourself for a wee while, shove the volume off for a wee bit, go away and get a cup of tea and then come back if there's anything that I'm talking about that makes you feel, uncomfortable. And that's why that self-care is there as well. Just so think about that. Think if there's something that's coming up. If you want to voice why you're uncomfortable with it, that's absolutely okay. But obviously within this, we're trying to grow and learn.
Amazing. I'm going to just skip her shitty little intro here. She's rambling. But Jesus, anti-racism. Anti-racism, of course. It's what we need. It's what we need in Scotland, of course.
Speak out and say what's on your mind, and we can...
Jesus, right.
From a book called Blackout here. It's a fairly new book. It was just published in 2022, and I'm just going to give you a wee minute to read over these quotes.
And she literally does give you about a minute to read through this. I've not even paused it. She just goes silent and lets you read all this. Drink it in, man. Right? I will pause it though, just to go through this. So this is the very beginning of a presentation here, and this is the crystal clear proof that Scotland's got a problem with racism because a fucking book said so. So what does it say? Racism in Scotland exists. Specifically, such racism includes the persistence of anti-blackness, contrary to mainstream media marketing and tourism messages that mobilize post-racial perspectives. Racism is not something that is just visible over there and elsewhere. It's here too, in bonny Scotland. This is something that, like, if you spend any time reading through the people that are behind the Building Racial Literacy program and whatnot, you spend any time reading their nonsense, right? you will often find them making references to words to the effect of like colorblind societies being problematic, post-racial societies, same principle. These are problematic, right? Because they're trying to sort of drag us back to seeing race, you know. A lot of people growing up probably didn't see race all that much, you know. I wouldn't go as far as to say that everybody was quote unquote colorblind per se, but they had no reason to really consider race, as it was a very homogenous country. Now, as it's becoming increasingly diverse, all of a sudden we need to start speaking about race and whatnot, but we have to do it through their fucking framework as opposed to just seeing it for what it is. But they have a problem with a post-racial society. They have a problem. It's just, I don't know why. But, you know. And then the second quote here, I feel like I'm tolerated, but only if I keep quiet and accept my circumstances. I was told by another teacher, whose ethnicity is ambiguous, but I can say is not white, that living in Scotland and being of colour means that I should just expect the fact that I would experience racist behaviour directed at me. I don't want this to be my life, and I choose not to accept this as default. Amazing stuff. I mean, wow. Anyway, so this is going to be difficult trying to find where she actually starts speaking again, but we'll go for it. Like, would like to.
Okay.
Oh, there she is. Yeah.
So basically, the reason why I put these quotes in is just to highlight the fact that racism in Scotland is here. It does exist. There is a bit of an attitude, particularly I'd say in the west of Scotland, where people make Glasgow and we're all Jock Tamson's bairns kind of thing, and everyone's welcome here, and we've got our new Scots policy for our asylum seekers and our refugees and our new arrivals in the country, and that's all great, but it doesn't mean that racism doesn't exist within our country. And the second quote there shows that racism exists within our schools.
Oh yeah, it really shows racism exists within our schools because a quotation said so, you know. Anyway.
As well, and it's something that we really have to consider, we have to think about, and it has to be addressed. And that's accurate for Glasgow as well. Okay. So if we go on to the next slide, please, Leanne.
However, your starting position in this race will be decided by the answers to questions that we are going to be asking you.
Sorry, what? It's a joke.
This activity is intended to explore how society favours one race over others.
People often confuse white privilege with being wealthy or being rich, and it isn't about that. What it's about is the absence of having to live with the consequences of racism.
Now, if the question applies to you, you will take a big step forward. If the answer to the question doesn't apply to you, you stay where you are.
I better win, man. Oh.
Okay, make sure you're on the start line. I see some cheaters already.
Yeah, fine.
Feet behind the line.
If English is your parents' first language, take a step forward.
Oh, yeah.
If you have ever been the only person in the room of your race, take a step backwards.
For God's sake!
If you've never been asked where you come from, take a step forward.
If you have never had to be worried about your family being stopped and searched, take a step forward.
I don't get worried about if people ask me to stop and search.
The divide widens, and the inequality of their position becomes clear.
This is just like not fair now.
This is part of the reason that I ended up wanting to make this video to begin with. I mean, we've all seen this clip before. I just couldn't believe that they included this in their presentation, to be honest. I mean, right from the get-go, when this did do the rounds at the time, and it was posted everywhere on Telegram and went viral on the internet in general, I mean, one of the things that should have been very clear to see from the very offset was the fact that the questions that were being directed towards the children were sort of manipulative in nature. They were designed in a specific fashion in order to achieve the outcome that they wish to achieve, which was to prove that white children are somehow more privileged than others. And it's just totally not the case, okay? But if you break down the questions one by one, anybody could easily be affected by said question, whether it be stop and search. Let's just go back to the not the 1900s. What am I talking about? The last century, even with Glasgow and whatnot, or even like 30, 40 fucking years ago with the Neds and knife crime in Glasgow. Who do you think was being stopped and searched back then? Was it black youth or was it white youth? So clearly white children in that instance would be able to relate to said question, right? On top of that, ask where you come from. Of course, you're going to be asked where you come from. But again, it's like one of those cliches that they always peddle. Guarantee the vast majority of the children, these BAME children, have never had that question directed at them. Where do you come from? Where are you really from? But it's one of those cliches, the same way that you always hear black people saying that people always touch their hair or asked to touch their hair, or feminists always claim that they can't walk from A to B without constant wolf whistles, etc., etc. I mean, it's just they all say the same things as if these things happen to them on a daily basis. But the fact that this is included in a presentation for Glaswegian school children really just speaks volumes here. Really speaks fucking volumes, to be honest. I mean, this video, as far as I was concerned at the time, and I still stand by what I'm about to say again, it's child abuse. It's absolute child abuse. In all honesty, you are emotionally manipulating children with your political shite. To put it bluntly, that's exactly what you're doing here with your deliberately manipulative, disingenuous, malevolent questions. To get the outcome that you want.
None of us are white. None of us are white. It's unfair.
The last question. If your parents have ever warned you about racism, take a step backwards.
See, even questions like that, like I remember saying all this stuff at the time, but just to sort of summarize what I did say back then, I think I was talking about it on a stream somewhere. Like even a question like that, whose fucking fault is that? If like that doesn't indicate privilege or lack thereof, that doesn't indicate that one is better off than the other. If your parents have sat you down and talked to you about racism, I mean, you could make the argument that your parents are at fault there. The same principle applies with the stop and search shit. How many black children, in particular, in England, are told by their parents from a very early age that the police are out to get them? How many? I don't know the answer to that, but you just know damn well that quite a lot of them are told that by their parents. So I don't exactly think that that's a fair question to ask. Surely the onus is on the parents to not tell their children about the evils of racism or whatnot, the non-existent racism that they proclaim permeates all through society. Fucking hell. Anyway.
If we were about to start a race, is this a fair starting point for us all? No. Nakai, how do you feel standing there in the field of runners?
I kind of feel a bit alone. I can't really see. I'm literally just by myself, more or less. I'm just a bit frustrated and annoyed that society nowadays really isn't fair. And I just wish everybody could be equal.
Farah!
It's kind of frustrating that, like, me and Sarah are just standing at the back here while the majority of people who may be white are, like, standing right at the front. That just frustrates me a bit, because it's almost as in what society is today. I don't want this to be how it is, but it is, so it just gets a bit frustrating.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Henry, how are you feeling being right at the very front?
It feels quite weird because if you think about it, I think all of us should be at the same point.
Well, you were before they started asking you disingenuous questions, but you're children. You're not at an age where you're going to be able to comprehend that, but that's not really the point here. I'm going to start skipping this now and get to the Scottish woman talking about going forwards. So here we go. What, like toffee? How do? Brainwashing? Absolutely. That video's fucking sick. Regardless of the colour of the children. Like, just in general, it's disgusting. The whole premise for that channel, I think it was Channel 4 at the time. The whole premise for that, start to finish, wrong. Absolutely wrong. Anyway, and that's what pissed me off about these Scottish women with their wee presentation here. What are your initial thoughts after watching this video? Why is this included? Why the fuck is this included in your presentation, your webinar? Rhetorical question, of course.
I'm going to talk at the end about some of the things that we're doing in Glasgow, and one of the things that we do is we do something called promoting anti-racism together in education, or party as it's called. And as part of the party kind of conference thing this year, we held some workshops for the young people, and we did something similar to this with some of our young people from primary schools and from secondary schools in Glasgow, and it was really quite effective. It was upsetting. It was upsetting to see just how some people were realising, you know, how they are treated differently because of the colour of their skin. And then it was also for a lot of the white children, I think there was like a sense of realisation for them as well about their privilege and what that means as well. And so
just listen to what they're saying there. I mean, they don't really provide any examples as to what they're actually talking about, but what you can take away from that is that they've just shown you that video, then they go on to speak about things that they've been doing in Glasgow with children. And I think the takeaway is to suggest that they've probably been doing similar activities with the children. She then goes on to talk about some of the kids got upset, and then the white kids started to realise that they had privilege and whatnot. So to Toffee's point there, it's fucking child abuse. It's child abuse. I don't even know what else I'm supposed to add to that. What the fuck else can I contribute to that tops that point? That is fucking vile. It's horrendous. Quite frankly, it's really fucking annoying me just thinking about it in truth, because the way that these women sit there and they think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with what they're doing. They think that they're on the right side of history. They're promoting anti-racism to your kids, especially if you're from Glasgow. This is your kids, potentially. You know? And most parents haven't the faintest fucking idea, because it's always hidden behind the fluffy little gay words of, oh, it's just anti-racism. What happened to going to school to learn your ABCs, your 1, 2, 3s and whatnot? You know, what happened to going to school to come out the other side somewhat intelligent and functional? Now all of a sudden you're going to school to learn our anti-racism and privilege. And the fact that they have to go to such lengths to not only disguise what they're doing with their gay fluffy words, but on top of that, use disingenuous tactics to prove their point. You know, such as like the clip that was just playing a second ago. This is what fucks me off with all this stuff, because the vast majority of people have absolutely no idea that this is going on in schools. They have no idea. But it's happening, and they're talking about it right now, and they think it's acceptable. Oh, fucking hell.
So it was quite a powerful thing to do, and I think this program's
to this question here is, where did it go? 2 seconds. Is there a link to the video? I will post the link to the video after I've recorded a few sections out of it, because I sometimes get the impression that if I post the link before I've done what I need to do, they might private it or whatever. But in fact, what am I talking about? I'm playing the video that I've downloaded. I can post you the link, no bother. Fine. Yeah, I'll do that in a second. Jesus Christ, boomer moment. Right, anyway.
Amazing thing. We show this to a lot of schools when we're doing training and things with them, and I think it's quite effective for the schools and the young people to see as well. So yeah, thanks very much. So yeah, if you've got time, watch it though. Watch the programme, because it is very good. I think it's called The School That Tried to End Racism, and it was on Channel 4. Thanks, Leanne. If you could go on to the next slide. Okay, so this is again something that I take out when I'm delivering training in schools about white privilege. And this is just some examples of white privilege. And I actually got this from the Metro newspaper, and there was a whole load of them, and I think they're really effective as well. So you can see there just some of the descriptions of white privilege is, you know, be naturally able to learn about your history instead of it being confined to 1 month within the year, where it should.
I mean, look at the slide. I mean, oh, I don't know. Because I'm using the downloaded version, I don't know how clear this is, but I can sort of make it out. The very top left-hand box says that white privilege is naturally being able to learn about your history instead of having it confined to 1 month in the year, where your history is part of the curriculum, where you don't have to sign a petition to have your history taught in schools. My history is referred to Black history, whereas white history is just called history. And they always frame things in such an annoying manner. It should go without saying that Scottish history, and this is another thing as well, right? Every video I end up doing this, and I'm going to do it again. I'm getting really fucking annoyed with the way that they frame this. White, right? They're talking about Scotland, okay? Stop lumping me and stop lumping Scottish people into the same category as people from Poland and Germany and whatnot, okay? Because we're not learning about German history. Well, we actually are, I suppose, because all you ever hear about in history in school is about my evil Nazis and whatnot, of course. But like, probably the wrong example to use. But we don't learn about Danish history in school, do we? Yeah, well, they're white, but we don't learn about that, do we? We don't learn about French history in school usually, yeah, or Estonian history or Serbian history. Tends to be British. Okay, and hate to break it to you, Britain, up until like the last 40 years was always white, apart from obviously its colonies around the world and whatnot during empire days. So it stands to reason that the vast majority of our history will by default incorporate white people, if you will, or Britons, English, Welsh, etc. You know? It should just go without saying. But because it goes without saying, nobody gives it any thought. And giving it no thought allows these people to say what they say. I'm like, oh, it's every month, White History Month. You know, because it goes without saying. You know what I mean? If I go to Senegal, I'm not expecting to learn about Vietnamese history, etc. It's just standard. I would have thought it was a standard around the world, but clearly not here. We need to be browbeaten. And on top of that as well, it's like they play into the sort of inferiority complex and the feelings of like not belonging. They play on these emotions to these people. Like if immigrants come here and have a child, and that child might not necessarily feel that they belong or they don't feel as included and whatnot. These people prey on these emotions. That's the racism. It's the racist structures that are doing that. No, it's because you're in a foreign country. Like. When are the parents going to take any responsibility for their fucking life choices? If you've moved to a country where everybody is completely different to you and you have children, you should have to have assumed prior to moving that this could be a likely outcome. Anyway. Then it says white privilege is a box, the second box on the top. White privilege is not having to prove you are a British citizen after living and working in the country for almost 60 years. Well, they're referring to Windrush now, aren't they? You know, I mean, I'm not even going to go down that route. It really annoys me, the Windrush bullshit. But then they say the bottom one, white privilege is never being indirectly, I can't even read that, to be honest. It's too wee. But the bottom right one, white privilege is not being overlooked for promotion due to your skin color. I mean, it's just, there was a story just like literally a few days ago of several police officers in England winning a case because they were being discriminated against on the basis of the fact they were white. There's multiple different jobs that have come out over the course of the past few years in particular, but not limited to, where they explicitly state they're looking for BAME candidates, you know? In fact, there was a park ranger job that I was intending to apply for near the beginning of the year, and they said that they were looking for diverse candidates, so I just never bothered. So, I mean, and then this is the other thing. If black people don't get the job, well, it must be because I is black. I mean, they literally are epitomizing the fucking meme. Anyway, and then this one here. White privilege is not being expected to talk on behalf of and represent your entire ethnic group. Black Lives Matter. I mean, just, again, just to remind people here that this is targeted towards children, okay? You know, bear that in mind.
Be part of the curriculum. And I'm sure most of you will know that that's something that we're still trying to work towards. It shouldn't just be that Black History is taught in Black History Month. It should be, just a normal part of the integrated curriculum, but it's still not there yet. We're not at that yet. White privilege has never been indirectly asked to explain where your skin colour comes from, not having to prove if you're a British citizen, not being overlooked to promotion due to your skin colour, not being expected to talk on behalf of and to represent your entire ethnic group. And this is something that I'm finding, being a white person who's delivering a lot of anti-racism training, that a lot of people aren't happy that I'm not a black person delivering anti-racism training. But I just feel that on the whole, it's white people behaviours that have to change. And so I think as a white person that I need to be leading the way with that as well. It shouldn't be up to black people to have to go out and tell everyone what to do. We should be doing it from, white people should be doing it from, we should be leading from the front on it, and it's not happening. So I'm unapologetic for being a white person who's delivering anti-racism training.
Just, I don't know. I really don't know. Said this in like the last stream that I did. I'm pretty sure it's the one I private. Like, why is it always people in this sphere are either one of two things? They're very effeminate men or they're women. I'm just saying. Oh my God.
I want to see change happen. I want to see white people changing the way that they act towards black people and people of colour, and so I do not apologise for going out.
They want white people to change, and what better way to get white people to change than to target our children? Yeah, because again, bear in mind, this is about children. We're talking about children, education here. So I don't know why she keeps flip-flopping between that and talking about adults, Man children, of course, if they're whining about microaggressions and non-existent racism, etc. But again, like, why do they keep doing this, lumping all whites into the same category? If a Polish person or somebody from Eastern Europe came over here, I can guarantee you that one of the questions that they'll be asked when somebody hears their accent is, where are you from? Right? So the same thing was probably going to get asked on occasion to somebody who comes over here and they're jet black. We know they come from the African continent, but we're just not entirely sure which part, right? Ask that question to both of these people. Only one of them will then fucking cry about it. Oh, you was only asking me because I was black. No, Jesus Christ. It's just, I don't know. But anyway, don't want to get bogged down in rambles.
And being someone that's trying to lead in that within Glasgow. When we talk to young people about white privilege, we also look at day-to-day things that show white privilege, and that can be things like, access to toys that are representative, books, or, it could be even things like makeup or plasters or things like that. We talk about day-to-day things that reflect white privilege, and I know that a lot of people can find the word privilege really, really difficult to interpret.
See, even this, you can hear how they're framing this, okay? So one of the arguments that she's making, and it's not the first time I've heard it, is that because society, our society, Scottish, British society in this context, has for the longest time, since its inception, has catered to its native population. So things such as books, plasters, for fuck's sake, toys and whatnot, they're all going to be tailored to the people who will be making use of said materials, whether it be the books, whether it be the plasters, whether it be whatever it may be, it's going to be tailored to the population. So if the population has always been white, it stands to reason that the things, the materials and whatnot within said society will be made towards white people, such as white dolls and plasters that match their skin tone and whatnot. But along comes the anti-racist teachers to try and point this out and say, this is an example of white privilege. No, it's not. It's not. And to try and suggest that it is white privilege is laughable, but if it just ended there, we could have a laugh about it. But again, they then take this nonsense to the classroom and start promoting this shit to children. Can you not see how privileged you are? Can you not see how privileged you are when all the plasters are the same color as you and whatnot? This is fucking ridiculous. If the country's now starting to become diverse, for lack of a better term, right? You're now just homing in on that fact and saying to all the little brown and black children that because society doesn't reflect their presence, their brand new presence that wasn't there 20, 30 years ago, because society does not reflect their presence, that's an indication of inequality and white privilege. It's just retarded. It's retarded. It really is. They're even doing it with our national identity, for fuck's sake. I could pull these clips up, no bother. They're even talking about wanting to have a Scotland of the future where people can identify as Scotsmen non-racially. Because at present, when people are asked to identify, or how would they imagine a Scotsman if they were asked to think about it or draw one, 9 times out of 10, they will draw a white man, but sometimes ginger, and he'll be having a kilt on and whatnot, right? They want to change that because anybody can be Scottish. I mean, this was never a problem. Everybody knows what a Scotsman is because they've always been the same. But it's now a problem in modern and diverse Britain because we're having to accommodate people who are not from here.
Internalise and to take on. And I know even with the first time that I started really going into anti-racism training, and when I thought about privilege, I think I was thinking about it from a kind of social, kind of monetary way, and obviously that's not what it means, because I was thinking, I wasn't privileged. I wasn't from a particularly well-off family or anything like that. But once you dig deeper and really, look under the surface and think about what white privilege actually is, then yes, we are very privileged as white people, and that.
We are very privileged as white people. Is that so? Once upon a time, I might have actually accepted that point in terms of I'm blessed to be Scottish, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I wouldn't want to be anybody else, But in this day and age, is it really a privilege to be constantly under the metaphorical microscope and having our culture flipped on its head and be berated? And if you respond in any capacity, it's white fragility, or you're far right and whatnot. Yeah. Towns up and down the country becoming unrecognizable, despite the fact nobody fucking voted for it. You've got a completely and utterly subverted nationalist party that are supposedly going to save all of our, or rectify all of our problems. Oh yeah, so much privilege, so much privilege. I could go on, and to Margaret's comment from earlier on, people struggling to feed their children and whatnot, irrespective of what color they are. Plenty of white people in food banks, plenty of white homeless people. In fact, the vast majority of homeless people in Scotland are white. Well, that's obviously because it's predominantly white for the time being, but that's not the point. So much white privilege that they can't even get a bed for the night. But if you're brown and you're called Tyrone and you go over on a fucking boat, well, hey ho, you're in a 5-star hotel, taxpayer expense. Who's got the privilege here? I wonder.
That's something that we have to teach our young people about, that they have some self-realisation about that. Does anyone have any questions or anything about that before I move on? No, thanks, Leanne. We'll move on to the next one then. Okay, so I'm just showing you these because this again is something that I share while I'm out and about delivering training in Glasgow. And again, this is something that I got from the Building Racial Literacy course, and I think it's a really interesting way to think about your anti-racism journey, and it's just thinking about where you are within that anti-racism journey. So you can see that there's an anti-racism journey as a white person, and then there's also an anti-racism journey for the person of colour. And it is a long journey to become an actively anti-racist person. And I think before I embarked on some proper training in anti-racism, I thought myself that I was an anti-racist person, and I think I was non-racist. But now I feel I'm more actively anti-racist. I'm more prone to call people out or call people in or whatever if they say something that I find quite offensive or find to be racist. Whereas before, I think I would find it a challenge to open my mouth and say something. But one thing that I think is interesting about this particular.
What I'm going to do though, I'm going to fucking share my screen and put the video up because I can actually see the text on her wee webinar there as opposed to the downloaded version. I can't really see it properly. But let me see. You're going to play it like. There we go. See what I can do here. It's kind of annoying trying to share the screen. StreamYard. Or what I could do is maybe print screen it, put it on a paint. Yeah, I might do that. I mean, making sense of the anti-racist journey. I mean, oh my God. Let me see what I can do here. Because I kind of want to see this properly. So, right, okay. I'll keep playing her in the meantime.
White person one is sometimes when we deliver training in schools or whatever, and we speak to certain members of staff, one of the first things that they'll say to us is you know, I'm not racist because I don't see colour, you know, colour doesn't matter to me. But actually, if you look at the anti-racist journey as a white person, then if you look right down at the bottom at number 1, that is the bottom of the journey. That's the starting point of the journey, not seeing colour. And so again, it can be such a climb for some people.
So that's what I was saying. Well,
to realise that
I was saying like the start. They've even got They've even got a problem. If you're one of these people that just doesn't see color. I mean, believe it or not, these people do exist. And again, it kind of goes back to the point that most people never really had to consider color because the country was homogenous. You know what I mean? Like my first encounter with immigrants was when I was in like primary 7, and they weren't even brown. They were like Polish. You know, that was my first encounter with foreigners. It's like one Polish boy moved to my school in primary 7 or something. And then there was like one black kid or Asian, I can't remember. And then when I was in high school, there was like a couple. It was just never something I had to consider at all, you know? And as a consequence of that, we didn't have to be sat down and told explicitly about white privilege and equality and diversity. It was just never really discussed. It never had to be, you know. But they've even got a problem with people like that now. If you can't see the world like that, you know, it's fucking ridiculous. But I'm wanting to see if I can present the screen because this is annoying me. If I save this fucking thing, because I want to read this properly. So let me see what I can do. I've got it on Paint, but I want to open it up. Not video file, unless it's a photo. Can I do photo? Oh, it should work. No. Ah, Boomer Tech, mate. Boomer Tech. Let me see. Present. Slides. Ah, fuck it, man. No working, Annoying me. What's this? I've fucking shown photos before, so I don't know. I mean, it just goes to show how long it's been. Oh, wait. Here we go. Entire screen. Window. There we go. Yeah, got it now. Got it. Okay. Hopefully this works a bit. Aye. So it's a bit better. It's better than nothing, I suppose. So this is their wee anti-racist journeys that they want children to embark on. Making sense of an anti-racist. Can I make it bigger? Full screen. There we go. Contact, disintegration, reintegration, pseudo-independence, immersion, autonomy. Oh my God. And then what they got here? Pre-encounter, encounter, immersion, internalization, commitment, frames of mind. Can I zoom in and make it actually readable? Not really. I am white and anti-racist. I embrace discomfort and I step in the way of racism, even when it comes off at personal risk to continue growing and learning. I will experience the other frames of mind again. Jesus Christ. Anyway, I'll keep playing the video. It's kind of annoying that I can't get properly blown up. But regardless, I had to.
It's a joke.
No, I'm not playing that again. Let me see. Here we go. Right. Here we go.
Delivering training in Glasgow. And again, this is something that I got from the Building Racial Literacy course. And I think it's a really interesting way to think about your anti-racism journey. And it's just thinking about where you are within that anti-racism journey. So you can see that there's an anti-racism journey as a white person, and then there's also an anti-racism journey for a person of colour. And it is a long journey to become an actively anti-racist person. And I think before I embarked on some proper training in anti-racism, I thought myself that I was an anti-racist person. And I think I was non-racist, but now I feel I'm more actively anti-racist. I'm more prone to call people out or call people in or whatever if they say something that I find quite offensive. Or
even this terminology, just on a wee side note, you know, I've heard this over the years. You probably heard it yourself, especially like post George Floyd. It was like the sort of trope they were all coming out with. It's not enough to be against racism. You must become actively anti-racist, you know? So we've now gone past the point of just not being a dickhead to brown people or whatever. Now it's like you have to embrace quote unquote anti-racism. But again, it's one of those fluffy words that they hide behind. And when you start to read into what they actually are talking about and how they see the world, you quickly begin to realize how poisonous this is. I mean, I know it's like really low-hanging fruit in terms of a comparative, but it's the same thing realistically. Antifa, for example, you hear it all the time. Oh, they're just simply opposing fascism, but they're not, are they? That's not what they're doing. It's not who they are. Same thing, literally the same thing. Anti-racist. You know? But it's an ideology that derives directly from postmodernism and critical race theory. But they're so brave and progressive that they can't just own it. No. They have to disguise and masquerade their bullshit with fluffy little words and poison your children's minds. Yes.
Find to be racist. Whereas before, I think I would find it a challenge to open my mouth and say something. But one thing that I think is interesting about this, particularly in the white person one, is sometimes when we deliver training in schools or whatever, and we speak to certain members of staff, one of the first things that they'll say to us is you know, I'm not racist because I don't see colour. You know, colour doesn't matter to me. But actually, if you look at the anti-racist journey as a white person, then if you look right down at the bottom at number 1, that is the bottom of the journey. That's the starting point of the journey, not seen.
And even the way that that's framed. So first and foremost, let's just unpack this briefly. I mean, I don't want to make this stream far too long. And I am trying to like not pause it 24/7, but there's obviously a few things there that I want to just briefly unpack. First and foremost, she's made reference to they go into schools to do training. Okay. So this isn't just a woman speaking shite, presenting something on her wee webinar to a non-existent audience. These people are actively participating in training and whatnot in schools. So the question has to be then raised, which schools? Which schools is she talking about? Is that something that could be found out? Don't know. Maybe. But as it stands, we know that there are some schools at the very bare minimum that these people are involved with. But the second thing there, I mean, just goes to show how manipulative they truly are, because even the way that thing's framed, the thing that I tried to blow up earlier on, all the wee stages, right? So they've got it all figured out. So it's basically their guide to manipulating children. The very bottom stage, you know, the way that she worded that there, you know, we speak to people and they say, I'm not racist, I don't see color. Well, it's funny you say that, because that's what point number 1 says in our little chart, you know. Mark my words, by the end of our training sessions, you won't be at step 1 anymore. You'll be all the way up at step 5 as an anti-racist. Got it all figured out. So just because it's written in their little fucking chart, that, you know what I mean? Anyway.
Colour. And so, again, it can be such a climb for some people to realise that their way of thinking, you know, their point of view isn't actually the correct point of view, and they're actually right at the bottom of their journey, and they've got a lot to do to become anti-racist. So I just wanted to show you that, because that is something that we share as I'm delivering training throughout Glasgow, and I do think it's a really effective wee tool for people to look at, to think about where they are in their journey and how they can improve as a person as well to become more actively anti-racist. Okay, thanks, Leanne.
I'm from the Highlands, mate. Inverness Shire. Most of my life I've been in and around Inverness, so I don't see it that often. The diversity. Don't get me wrong, as I've got older, I've started to see it a little bit more up here, but I only really see it for what it's becoming when I'm down Edinburgh, Glasgow way, and it's fucking bad there. Like really bad there, especially Glasgow. Really, really bad in Glasgow. And like what's frustrated me for years is the fact that people up here, it seems to be they're off the mindset that because it's not on their own doorstep, they don't assume it's ever going to be. And it's like banging your head off a metaphorical wall in many respects, because you can't really say to them, look at Glasgow, that's coming to you. You know, it's like it just kind of, it doesn't resonate with people, you know? And these are the same people as well who will do nothing but call English people racist. Yeah, they're not experiencing the levels of immigration that English people currently are. That's what really annoys me about these people. Not just people up here, but just in general in Scotland. You hear it all the time. Oh, the racist little Englanders. It's like, okay, we'll see how you fucking feel in 20 years' time when your city's completely unrecognizable. You know? See how you feel then. But in the meantime, it's just berate the English. The far right fascist English people, you know. We're not like that up here in our little white towns. Yeah. See how you feel in 20 years, mate. That's what annoys me. Really, really annoys me. But don't see colour, but spends the whole talk speaking about her privilege. Exactly. It's just I don't know. Yeah, see to your point there, by the way. Glasgow's already about 20% non-white. I don't know the official estimations, but it's round about that figure. Now, the only reason I know that is because over the course of the past few years, I've seen a few articles like Glasgow Times from Glasgow Live and whatnot, then they've made reference to it. Like, there's nothing official that I've seen to suggest it, but like, if their own local newspapers are referencing it, then I think it's safe to assume that they might be somewhat close to correct. So it's already about 25% BAME, and that's our most populated city in the country, you know. And it's obvious. There's parts of Glasgow, by the way, that are about 95% non-white, and that is a fact. 95% non-white, you know. And it's just going to keep getting worse. It only goes one way. It doesn't equal itself out. No, it just keeps going and going and going and going and going. Anyway.
Okay. So in June 2022, I went away out and I went to some primary schools in Glasgow. I'm not going to tell you which ones I went to keep it quite anonymous. And I visited quite a few schools and I had a chat with staff, and that was all staff. So that was teaching staff, Jannies, cleaners, support for learning workers. I spoke to dinner ladies if they would come and talk to me. I spoke to some parents within the school. I had a parent questionnaire as well. I managed to speak to some parents one-to-one, and I spoke to some pupils as well. So we spoke to pupils from, you know, P1 up to P7. We did try some nursery pupils, but it was absolutely hopeless. They were too busy talking about their shoes and
even that there. Oh, we did try with nursery kids. Why would you try and approach nursery age children with your anti-racist shite? Why would you even consider that? Why would you attempt that? Why the fuck would you attempt that? Second of all, did you not pick that up? I'm assuming you all heard her saying that there, that they're keeping it anonymous which schools are visited. You know, we did try with the nursery age children, though, but you know, some of the P1s and whatnot, they responded, but you know, fucking. I know it's not financially feasible for people in general to all just take their children out of school and homeschool them and whatnot. I understand that, but the only thing that I can say to people, if they cannot do that and they do have kids in school, whether it be high school or otherwise, is at the very bare minimum, keep a very close eye on just what the hell has been taught. Because this is what I find remarkable about these people. They're very secretive. You know, they claim that they're on the right side of history, but yet they're very, very secretive. Even the Building Racial Literacy program itself, you cannot get any access to the materials that these people provide to one another and whatnot. It's effectively behind a paywall. The only way to gain access to their little club, so to speak, is to basically jump through hoops. There's a lot of security clearances that you need to get through in order to become part of the team. And then even when you do become part of the team, it's not even granted that you'll be able to find out where all the other teachers are up and down the country. It's all very, very secretive and anonymous. And I find that a bit questionable. But again, I mean, I know I'm rambling here, but just the way that they speak so candidly and as if there's nothing wrong with it. Oh, we did try to speak to nursery kids. So these are kids that, have only just started to learn how to walk. Some of them probably can't even talk properly yet, and you want to sit them down and try to talk to them about anti-racism. You fucking cunt.
The chairs that were sitting on or whatever else, so we just didn't really get anywhere with them. And what we did was we asked them these questions that you can see on these in these two little boxes here. The questions were sent out to the schools before we went out, so that it wasn't as if I was springing it on them, or there wasn't like they had time to think about their answers before they came and spoke to me. And what I was hoping to gather was a kind of snapshot of what the thoughts are on racism in schools, what's happening with regards to racism in schools, how much racism do we see in the schools, and then what's happening to combat that. What solutions are we coming up with? What anti-racist practices are there taking place within our schools? So as you can see, it's not really been anything like too tricky, but I was just trying to dig a little bit deeper to try and understand what was happening within the schools. And as we go on throughout this presentation, you're going to see some of the feedback, some of the things that were said within the schools. I also should say that when I'm out delivering training now, the staff questionnaire I put on at the end of my training session. So I've got a lot of up-to-date information. So that's constantly getting updated via an electronic a form, an electronic survey. So I keep updating the information from that. So although some of this took place in June 2022, we're trying to update information all the time. Okay, thanks, Leanne. Go on to the next one. Okay. So what you see here is some of the responses that we got back from the pupils from talking to them. So I'm just going to talk around these for a wee minute. So if we start at the top left up there, so the pupils did note lots of differences between them and their friends. The pupils, particularly the younger pupils, rarely mentioned skin colour or ethnic background or religion or anything like that. They talked more about their likes and their dislikes and what kind of people they were, whether they were kind or funny or, kind of daft or whatever, or quiet. They talked more about that than they talked about even if they spoke different languages. That didn't really seem to be.
Oh, the fucking waffle. I mean, as I said, I haven't watched all this. I mean, I don't want to keep interrupting, but at the same time, I'm finding it hard to just listen to her babble. I'm struggling a bit, but I'll keep going, obviously. But I mean, this stuff here. Some pupils commented that they did not experience racism due to their skin color, but because of their religion. When discussing racism, BAME pupils are more at ease talking about the issues. White pupils often chose not to speak when the question about racism is asked. I wonder why. I wonder why they might not be comfortable asking or discussing this topic. Because it's been framed in a very particular manner. I wouldn't be entirely comfortable if I was a child and I had this bitch and her little cronies approaching me for some sort of anti-racist training session where we're going to learn about privilege and whatnot. I might be slightly uncomfortable too, There is a reluctance with pupils to use the terms black and white when describing their peers. Oh, man, Jesus Christ. BAME pupils are not offended when people ask them about their culture, including clothes, hair, etc., and enjoy having the opportunity to talk about this with others. Yeah, again, even that in and of itself, have you not noticed we don't even talk about assimilation anymore? That has just gone out the window now. Now it's all about embracing everybody else's culture, which in and of itself dilutes our own, which is part of the obvious agenda that's at play here. You don't need me to spell that one out for you, but we no longer try to encourage assimilation and integration. No, it's just embrace everybody for who they are at the expense of our own. I mean, I would be so pissed off if my child came home and said to me that they were learning about this in school. I would be so infuriated, in truth. I really would. Don't know. I really don't know. Let me see if I can skip past this a bit, though. I don't really want to listen to her crap. Staff voices. What's this shit? Let me see if I can. Staff are aware of equality policies. In most places, they're being updated as part of the SIP, whatever that means. Most staff commented that the majority of racist incidents recently had been aimed at Chinese children who are being targeted due to the pandemic. All right, okay. Press X down on that one. The term racist incidents seemed to make people uncomfortable. When asked about racist incidents, they often said there were none, and they would go on to discuss something racist that might have happened. Amazing. Not all staff were aware of what unconscious bias meant. See, again, just dripping their fucking poison in it. Unconscious bias, a non-existent term created by, yet again, more critical race theorists who predominantly came from American college campuses to begin with, postmodernism, etc., and it's trickled across the pond, and now it's in Scottish academia. Unconscious bias, a non-existent term, so I'm not exactly surprised that most teachers hadn't fucking heard of it before. If racist incidents take place, staff generally report this. There are terms being used by staff in the school which they don't realise is offensive, e.g. calling certain pupils halals. Who says that? Fucking what? Oh my god. Anyway. Okay, anyway, fucking way. Never heard somebody say that. Holy shit. Oh, let me see. Oh, fucking hell.
They couldn't help it, even the ones that you now.
Disability, gender.
There we go.
So I think in conclusion, I suppose, around this particular study that Christine was looking at, there's 4 key points that we're going to cover just as we finish discussing this particular part of our presentation. So obviously equalities and anti-racism policy is really key within the school, and so we're going to have a wee explore of that. Looking at how does the reporting of racist incidents, what's the prevalence of the reporting of racist incidents? And actually we're going to look at that as well within the kind of Scotland context. What's the impact of the community around the school in terms of promoting anti-racism or all the things around that? And we're also going to make some suggestions about moving forward and explain how within Glasgow City at the moment we're working with a number of different groups really to push forward this anti-racism agenda that's really important for our learners.
It's an agenda. I mean, at least they're honest. It's an agenda. Of course, it's an agenda. Very, very good way to word it. Very accurate. But you know, it's important for the learners to embrace this agenda. Why? Why?
Sorry, you can probably hear my family in the background having an argument. No one else having that problem tonight. So every school in Glasgow has an equalities policy.
Shut up. See, you make a good point there, actually. And this is one of the potential side effects that could come off this, like negatively speaking. For them, anyway. Not necessarily for me or yourself. But in their attempts to sort of bring race back into the conversation, but they have to be very careful how they go about it, because for the most part, children in general, like especially if they live in a very homogenous area, they've got no reason to really consider race at all. You know, they're not what would be considered racially conscious, etc. So they're trying to sort of bring racial consciousness to the surface, but they're trying to do so in order to get people to see the world via their little fucking poisonous worldview through their lens. But the potential for that to go wrong is it could go the other way, where you start to sort of rejuvenate a racial consciousness within white youth. And as a consequence of that, they start to just realize, yeah, we are a community, we are one people and whatnot, and what the fuck are you doing? You know, there is that possibility that could occur. I'm not saying it will occur. Time will tell, but I mean, they are playing a somewhat dangerous game in that regard, because it could go the other way. There's absolutely no justification nor reason for these people, these alleged teachers and trainers and whatnot, to enter schools and nurseries, like they mentioned, and introduce these topics to children who otherwise would have been somewhat oblivious to these concepts, such as racism and unconscious bias and white privilege, etc. So they do play a risky game in that regard. But as I said, time will tell. Time will tell.
And within the equality policy, we have to think about 7 protected characteristics. So obviously we're talking about race tonight, but we have age, disability, gender, religion and belief, sex, sexual orientation, marriage and civil partnership, and pregnancy and maternity within those categories as well. But we're focusing on race and how really that feeds into the equality policy, or how the equality policy should really be protecting people of colour. So in terms of the schools that Christine was talking about, all schools were aware that they had an equalities policy, and that is something that is mandatory within the council. But some had not referred to it or felt that they needed to refer to the policy. So Glasgow City Council has been through recently a revamp of their equality policies, and a lot of schools have been looking at that. We have something called a school improvement plan. Every school has to submit one each year, and so some of the schools that Christine had talked to had then gone and spent some time updating their SIP as part of their work in order to tackle racism within their schools. But inevitably there's quite a high staff turnover in many schools at the moment, lots of different reasons within the city. So the Herald, around the reporting of it, race recorder teachers have said they should be recorded. Some girls in P1 and P2 are laughing at another girl's afro hair. And again, as Christine said, these things
what kids do, though. I mean, fucking hell, does that justify anti-racist education because kids pick on kids for? I mean, to Woodlander's comment there, you know, the Nostradamus in the chat here, he said this before that woman even said it. Kids pick on kids for different reasons, you know. The fat kid, the kid with the big head, the kid with the big ears, the kid that's ginger, the kid that's albino, the kid that might be black. Whatever the reason may be, kids pick on other kids. They can be horrible little bastards at times, right? Why we need to single out racism as if it's completely different to the rest of all the other things that kids pick on other kids for is beyond me. But of course, they do this, and then it justifies their anti-racist education. It's so annoying.
Conversations around maybe hair care, other moment through something called the Anti-Racism Support and Development Group within the north of Glasgow.
Racist incidents. What is racism? The Oxford Dictionary defines it as prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. However, this is a simplified explanation of a complex issue, and it's only a complex issue because they're redefining what racism is. This is like textbook critical race theory at its finest. Racism is, you know, seeing people as beneath you and yourself, or your race is superior. That's what the dictionary definition would have you believe. Okay, I know that it comes from back in the day, you know, Bolshevism and whatnot, and I get all that shit. But my point is, though, if you open up an old dictionary, that's what it will tell you. But these people want you to think that there's a myriad of different ways that racism can manifest, and to the question, not the question, sorry, the comment there about oppression. Oppressors and whatnot, that's exactly what it is. Prejudice plus power. Therefore, white people are always the racist. They can never be the victim of racism, etc. Like, there's so many different prongs to this redefined version of racism that they've got going as part of their little ideology. And that is actually the core basis for anti-racist education, because they've redefined the word and it's multifaceted. Now it's a multifaceted, complex issue. Thus, it requires anti-racist education. You know, we've gone past not treating brown people like dicks, and brown people don't treat white people like dicks, and just, you know, treat everybody as equals and whatnot. No, that's the old-fashioned version of being against racism. Now it's all about, you know, prejudice plus power, white privilege, etc., etc. Anyway, let me say, I mean, I don't know what else this video includes. As I said, like, the reason that I felt very, very heated and compelled to do the stream was sort of the shit that was included at the start. So I don't really know what's coming up next. Don't want to keep people too long if it's boring.
It's really causing me to really consider all my viewpoints. And so I would have said I was not anti-racist, but what I came to realise, a bit like Christine, is that I was non-racist, and actually it's now on TikTok.
Was racist or racially coded language, like, you know, blatant racial segregation and discrimination. But I think what we need to get across within our schools to our young people and to the staff within the schools is that it's like racial discrimination can be kind of disguised and shows up in subtle ways. So like you said, like it could be like implicit biases or microaggressions or racially coded language. And a lot of the times people say and do these things and they're unaware that actually racism is at what is at the back of what they're saying, if you know what I mean. So the list that you can see on the screen are examples of things that were said when I was interviewing some of the staff in the schools about racism in their establishments. And I honestly don't think a lot of the staff realised that a lot of what they were saying was racist. I don't think they realised, you know, their actions were as racist as they actually were. So like the first one I talked about, the generational language and things like that. And I mean, that was just...
Again, it's sort of difficult to see, but I mean, towards the bottom of the screen, I don't know if people can see this. If you put it on full screen, if you're watching it on a monitor, you might be able to see it, right? They say emissions are passive racism, so, and then they've got in brackets, socially acceptable. Then they refer to a few things here, such as colorblind. The term colorblind is racist, apparently. But then they say, just to the left-hand side of that, and slightly up a bit, even though the beginning of the word is sort of cut off on the screen for whatever reason, Eurocentric curriculum. This goes back to what I was on about near the beginning of the video, you know, where like people move to Scotland. If we're talking about Scotland, people move to Scotland. Nigerians move to Scotland. They should expect that the Scottish curriculum will be what would be considered Scottish or British, aka or slash Eurocentric, but that's a problem now. That's a fucking problem now. It needs to encompass all the newcomers, all the foreigners. It needs to be diverse and progressive. It needs to be inclusive at the expense of our own. They're pointing to a Eurocentric curriculum in Scotland, which has always been Europe or European even, white, whatever you will. They're pointing to that and saying that that's a problem. They're pointing to that as an example of racism. And as a result of that, the only way to solve said racism is to diversify the curriculum, decolonize the curriculum. How's that fucking racist? It's just so frustrating. I mean, it just really frustrates me that this stuff, it's just never ended in Scotland. I mean, I know it goes on elsewhere, don't get me wrong, but it's like nobody seems to understand or even fathom how bad it is in certain parts of this country. They don't know. They have absolutely no idea. Yeah? And that's what really fucks me off the most. Really fucks me off the most, in all honesty. I mean, some of my mates that I've met over the years on the internet who live in Scotland, they've got kids and they're very well aware of what's going on and whatnot. You know, good for them. But how many others out there do not have a clue? That's the problem. It really is a massive problem in this country. And what the most irritating thing about it all, apart from the fact they're targeting children, is the fact that so many in this country cannot see past our government, our SNP, or our gurus, the nationalist gurus. But yet they are very much, I would argue, about 80% responsible for all of this shit. But they don't tell you that that's what's going to be coming towards your children in the near future when they're standing there trying to get re-elected, are they? Whether that's at council level or otherwise. No, you never hear that. Somebody's, oh, my independence in the EU. My independence, you know. Scotland's voice. The people of Scotland. Can't even call us Scottish people anymore. It's just the people of Scotland. You know? But you never hear them talk about this. And that's what really frustrates me.
Defence mechanism, I think, with them, like when I called them out for it and said you really shouldn't be using that particular word. And then I think that was them, like, you know, they kind of got their hackles up a wee bit. The racial slurs between learners being labelled as non-racist, I think this is a bit of an issue, and I think it's because like in this particular incident, it was a white child had called a black child a monkey, but then they said that previous to that, the black child had called the white child like an alligator or something like that. So it was kind of, you know, it was justified in such a way, and they were saying it wasn't a racist slur when really it was. But you know, so it's like they're too fighting to take it that wee bit further. There was inappropriate jokes made by
Take it
a member.
further. I mean, fucking cheat. I just can't. It would be bad enough if the woman who was speaking here was intelligent. You know, it's just, I'm literally playing a video of a woman who's probably got less IQ points than my dog, trying to explain the complex nature of this fabricated and new and improved version of race. We need to take things further, you know, and then you get the most trivial, mundane examples from her time on the ground. Oh, fuck off. I just cannot listen to that crap. And I still don't get this, but labeling all learners with brown skin as halal. Who says that? I have legitimately never heard that term being used to refer to brown people apart from when I fired this video on it. I have never heard that term being used. Never. I've the things you learn, eh? Jesus Christ. Anyway, I mean, who says that?
You know, that they were so comfortable
outside in the school community. Definitely going to inform how they think and anti-racism around the school.
To certain members of staff and things, and you want your
maybe the next section will be a bit more riveting
at times. Jane,
I'm losing the will to live
you,
here.
and if you can move on later.
Oh, honestly, it's just some of these people. Oh, I don't know. And you're right. It's just, I'm not joking, mate. I mean, I don't know if you've watched some of my older stuff when I first started covering this topic, when I found their old website where these parasites all emerged from initially. They've got a section dedicated to like colorblind societies and how like it's problematic was the word that they used, and then they went on to say that it was racist. It's like, what? So for all these years they tried to like normalize not being racist, and as a result the consequence of that is you're now a fucking racist. Well, you just can't win. You can't win with these people. It's unbelievable. It is truly unbelievable. But anyway, hopefully the next section will be a bit more riveting, because it surely can't get any worse.
Thank you. So again, thinking about the impact of the school community and the wider community around the school and how that can affect anti-racism or racism within a school. The surrounding community has a massive effect and impact on what happens in the school. Children spend around 80% of their time at home, and the thoughts and attitudes of their parents and who they frequently see is definitely going to inform how they think and how they act.
So, I mean, there's so much I could just unpack with this screenshot that's on the screen. First of all, I made videos on this way back in the day. Fucking hell, like we're going back to like well before even COVID and all that. Might have been like 2018 or something. And Sarwar made claims that were never actually proven, such as what you can see there, the Daily Digger thing. Scotland won't vote for a brown Muslim, right? I think if from memory, it was in relation, he claims, him and his wife claim that some Labour politician, one of his colleagues, had said that his wife, who was standing for a council election or something, nobody's going to vote for her because she's a brown Muslim, insert P word, right? It was never proven. It was never proven. And I'm pretty sure it went to like some sort of tribunal and it got thrown out. Okay. So to this day, it's never been proven, but he still occasionally refers to it. Second point I'll bring up there, though, again, is, you know, it says there just can't, as nice as like changing demographics. Changing demographics. I mean, herein lies the problem. Changing demographics is becoming a problem for more and more and more people. And instead of that being what you would assume would occur, we need to sort of get in there quickly to sort of instill anti-racism in them so they don't see it as a problem. As for this one, often comments made about housing going to people of color or refugee families. I mean, at the end of the day, right, there's multiple councils up and down the country that have declared housing emergencies in Scotland. Okay, you've got social housing and affordable housing and council housing waiting lists that are forever increasing. And your grand plan, or the government's grand plan over the years to try and reduce these waiting lists, is not to build more houses and whatnot, it's to continue to import people. So it stands to reason that immigration is exacerbating the problem, regardless of whether or not they came from Ukraine or they came from Pakistan or Botswana. They're still exacerbating the problem. You know? And as for the hotels and whatnot, I mean, need I go on about that? But what's the what? We present this to the children, do we? Is that what we're going to do now? We're going to present all this to the children and say, people are scapegoating migrants. The same bullshit that we hear all the time on the TV from man-child politicians and whatnot. You know? It really annoys me the way that they frame things, because there's never like any legitimate debate nor pushback when they come away with these like stupid, like gaslit, riddled claims. Yeah, it really fucks me off. But anyway, keep playing it for a bit. Like,
alongside this, occurrences in the local community will also affect how learners react in school. So if issues are prevailing inside the school, then they're quite possible, well, they're definitely probably going to be happening outside in the school community. And some of the things that fuel that are issues around housing. Almost the idea that that would have been my house, but somebody else took it. And again, the othering of people, changing demographics. So we're in areas potentially was predominantly maybe potentially white, and maybe over time just housing's changed, other people have come in, and it's changed the traditional demographic of the area. It can cause problems for some people.
What do you say to that? I mean, I really don't know what you're supposed to fucking say to that, to be honest. I mean, these are things that shouldn't be happening. It's unnatural, you know, but you just say it's just so matter-of-factly, you know? The othering of people as well, that one. Again, that just goes back to what I was just going on about. Really annoying. Nobody's othering other people, but you can't deny the elephant in the room here that if there's a shortage of housing, continuously importing people is not exactly helping the problem, is it? It's exacerbating the problem. More and more people competing for houses. You know? And it is kind of an unwritten rule that is observable that in many constituencies, especially in Scotland, where there's people that have been on waiting lists for years, are seeing brown and black people getting these houses when they've not even been in the country for like fucking a decade. There is clearly some form of unwritten rule that a lot of these councils and whatnot are abiding by. Anyhow. I thought this section would be a bit better, but clearly no.
That pervades into schools as well. And then potentially who also runs our local shops and amenities. So just looking at some of the comments, the school, the local corner shop, some of the customers will say racist
shut up
of this study and all the things we've discussed tonight.
Consider the community that surrounds your school. Are you aware of any racist incidents that have taken place? Are new families in the area made to feel welcome? Does the school engage with the local community? What happens in the school to ensure everyone feels welcome? What even this emphasis on feeling welcome? It's a fucking school. I don't know. I really just so namby-pamby at times. To your point, Neil. Like, this is why, like, I started the stream to begin with and explained very briefly at the start that, albeit I'm not going to get very many viewers live, I never really do. But hopefully at a later date. Usually I get quite a decent amount of views after the fact. People will come and watch it at some point after the stream finishes, and usually they've sort of averaged on view count maybe like 400 to 600. You know, so maybe out of that 400 to 600, maybe several people might actually go and start looking at some of this stuff themselves. And that's really all you can hope for. As far as like the subject itself, like anti-racism and whatnot in schools, I think in a Scottish context in particular, it's something that's not spoken about enough, nowhere near enough. And it's over the years, it's like I've had periods where it was gaining some traction. In fact, like even a couple of years ago, like the SNP, they didn't name me and a few others directly, but they were clearly referring to us at their conference. They were referring to us and called us white supremacists and whatnot because we had the audacity to start bringing their little critical race theorists to task on Twitter. And it was gaining a bit of momentum then, but it's just kind of gone back to a deafening silence again. And the other point that I made at the start of the stream was like, if I upload a video of John Swinney, I might get 1,000 views. If I uploaded this video that I'm reacting to, just in a few clips, you know, cut some stuff out and posted, you know, part 1, part 2, etc. But lucky if it gets like 40 views, which is a bit annoying because then I feel compelled to do streams, which sometimes I really don't want to do. I just wish more people in general would speak about it. And I think on a larger scale, just in overall, like with everything that's going on across society, I think there's just there's a vacuum waiting to be filled for Scottish people in general. There's an awful lot of people on Twitter, YouTube, Rambo, Odyssey, etc., from all over Europe and America and Canada and whatnot, and especially even in England, Ireland. But it's just a serious lack of Scottish voices, and I think that that's absolutely needed going forward, just in general. The more Scottish voices that there are, the more likely, I would assume, the more likely it would be that they'll pick up a bigger and bigger Scottish audience, and that's kind of what you need. You know what I mean? However, Robert, what like, Gudge? What like? Anyway, I'll play a bit more of this. So. What's the best bit? The fact one. What's this? I don't know if you've ever been to like one of the the rallies that have occurred. Oh mate, honestly, you see some fantastic physiognomy at these events, shall we say?
Chris, it's predominantly Christine's work. In fact, it is Christine's work, and she's been out and spoken to these schools. We've heard about how it's impacted upon equality policies. Some schools will do that more than others, and there's various barriers.
It's great that we're hearing all this stuff that's happening within our schools, but I think we also need to address that parent councils have a part to play in this. And one thing that Glasgow City Parents Group has created is a way of being able to not just welcome new Scots or minority ethnic parents into your parent council, but any new parent. I mean, it just adds another layer. If English is additional language, or you're from a different culture and you're maybe walking into a room that's full of predominantly white faces that have been working with each other, maybe for a couple of years, that have all grown up with each other, etc. That can feel like a very unwelcoming space when you might not mean it that way as a parent council, but it can be really intimidating. So when we're talking about a lot of this, think about your own parent council. Think about when you have your meetings on. Are your
You know, it's funny as well. She mentions their parent councils and whatnot, community councils, parent councils. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to change the screen for a split second. But to the question there, what's the name of this group? This group is 2 seconds. They are, funnily enough, Glasgow City Parent Council. So, oh, links to slides. Oh, didn't realize that was in their description. Fucking hell, that's made life a bit easier. If I need to, I can look at that instead now. Wow. But yeah, they made reference to parent councils there, and community councils, etc. It's just, wait, why is my fucking laptop in the dick? let me show you this very quickly. This was like maybe about a month ago, 2 months ago or something. And it was brought to my attention by somebody who happened to actually be there at the time. And when they told me about it, I was like, well, we need to get that on. We need to get the clip. And to their credit, they went out of their way to find said clip. Took a lot of patience and whatnot, but they got there. And as a result, yeah, we've got this bad boy. So let me just get the time frame right. There we go. This is Paisley, Renfrewshire Council. They are talking about community politics, you see. And they have this to say.
It's not beyond our ability to try and make things easier for people. And certainly if we know that we have members of the public coming along, we can make sure that they have sight of the papers before they come in, because the papers are published the week before the meeting, or certainly the Friday before the meeting. So it is available on the website. Councillor Jacqueline Cameron.
Thanks, Provost. Just to support fully the motion, because I think the issue is about individual community councillors. I'm thinking specifically of an example of a community council in Dundee where there was members of a far-right group who became chair and members of the community council. So I think we all agree that we wouldn't want people who are members of a far-right group to have power and influence in the community. I'm not sure what the outcome of that was for that particular community council, but I think it's really important that we have some sort of process where we can make complaints. Thanks.
So, far right, the far right aren't allowed into community politics, community councils, whatever, parent councils, etc. So they're already like setting the scene. You have to be their way inclined, ideologically speaking. If you're even remotely dissimilar, your views are not the same as theirs. If you're, dare I say, a racist as opposed to an anti-racist, well, you're not allowed in the club. So that in and of itself just kind of goes a wee bit of a way to showcase that, it's not exactly the most equal of environments, is it? It's very much one-sided. But yeah, the far right. That woman, of course, Jacqueline Cameron, SNP, she actually stood for election. She didn't win, hence why she's gone back to Renfrewshire Council. But yeah, SNP, always SNP. Scottish nationalist, apparently. Remember that, folks. Scottish nationalist, but yeah, against the far right. How that doesn't compute with me. How you're supposed to be nationalist. You're presented as nationalists by your opponents anyway. And then you oppose the far right, but yet the far right, air quote unquote, are sort of allegedly supposed to be national. It doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. But yeah, if you can manage to find your way into one of these parent councils or community councils and whatnot, then more power to you. More power to you. At the very bare minimum, just to keep an eye on what the fuck they're talking about. Anyway, I'll get this back up, see what she's saying. And it's good that I've got the slides. That might be more beneficial than listening to their absolute shite. And a lot of it's been shite. I'm just scrolling through the paragraphs, not the paragraphs, sorry, the slides. There's only 29 of them. What else is happening in Glasgow to address racism? Oh my fucking god! Oh my god! I mean, I might show the slides soon, but oh Jesus!
Welcoming, or do you kind of fall into that habit where new parents join your meetings? You say hi, nice to meet you. You maybe exchange names, and then you just fire straight into your meeting. You're talking fast. You're using jargon that they might not know. And you're not checking in with the new parent in the group to check if they're following the meeting, if they understood everything. Do you follow up with them after the meeting to check how did they feel, how did they find it?
It's just so good. Oh, I can't deal. It's just unbearable shite. Really. I mean, I don't even know what this has got to do with fucking children at this point, but it's like, That in and of itself, if somebody back in the day, if somebody joined a group, whether that's a parent council or any other group, they have to assume that they're going to be the new kid on the block. They're going to have to feel uncomfortable, it just goes without saying. And then eventually they'll start to, let their guard down and become one of said group. And instead of that, we need to listen to shite about, we need to think about making them feel welcome and give them lots of cuddles, make them feel included because we love so much diversity. Just fuck off, man. Anyway, but Jesus. Anyway,
what
right.
things can be in terms of language. I
This
think
stuff,
Staff do want to be trained, they want to know more.
Here we go. Staff training, eh?
Right, I think we're handing back to Christine for the next slide, is that right?
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks, Christine.
Okay, so the suggestions moving forward from the staff, and if you actually look at both of these, the staff and the pupil suggestions kind of tie in. So it's about raising awareness about.
Oh, the staff. The staff and the pupils. Ah, what a shock. They have the same worldview. That's remarkable. I mean, I couldn't have figured that one out. I don't know how that happened. What a coincidence. But look at this shit. Staff suggestions, pupil suggestions to move forward. So the staff have provided some suggestions to these dimwits, such as raising awareness about different cultures in school. Why? Why? Within reason, fair enough, I guess. If there's like a Muslim kid in the class or whatever in primary school, like back in the day when I was talking about when there was that one Polish kid that I had in primary 7 when I was in school. We learned a little bit about Poland for like half an hour, and that was it. But now it's not. So there's no encouragement to assimilate or integrate. It's all about prioritizing multiple different cultures at the expense of our own, obviously. But then staff training to ensure that they feel equipped to deal with anti-racist incidents. I never actually told you what they actually classify an anti-racist incident as. According to the Scottish Government and Police Scotland, an anti-racist incident is any incident that is perceived being the operative word here, perceived to have occurred due to racism. So you could call a black guy in school a dickhead, and that black guy might assume that you or perceive that as racist. And if they perceived it as racist, it then gets, if they report it, it then gets noted down as a racist incident in school, regardless of whether or not it was genuinely racism related or whatever. It doesn't matter. It becomes a statistic. Moral awareness, raising about racism. Wow. Of course, that's what we did. Of course. And why is it that this is becoming an ever-increasing problem? Could it be, and hear me out here, could it be that as schools become more and more diverse, this becomes an increasing problem? What? Just said. Anyway, highlight good practice and show how it is working. Try to bring communities together to learn from one another. Ensure the parent council is more diverse. There you have it, folks. Yeah. It's got to be diverse. It could be completely 100% brown and black, and that would be fine. But because it's not brown and black enough, that's a problem. More diverse staff. So their own staff are suggesting that they should have more staff that are diverse. Implementation of 1 to 2 language initiatives, using more community languages in the school. And then the pupil suggestions, 0 tolerance policy for racist bullying. If nothing is done, then they will just keep doing it. Talk to those who have done something racist. Let them learn more about other cultures. Equality community is good. It allows for all voices to be heard. Use the school values to ensure that everyone knows that racism won't be accepted. More lessons about different cultures and races. Right. Okay. So we can skip their shite and move to the next bit, shall we? Oh, fucking hell. Parent views. I'm going to have to go with the slides for that because parent interviews, Jesus. Oh, dearie me. What else have we got? Parent interviews. Oh, my God. Okay.
The school should promote different cultures.
Why?
So that the kids grow up learning about different religions and different cultural celebrations.
Why?
talking about race and being respectful and being aware of each other's differences, and promote no tolerance to racism and have it shown somewhere that every child and parent can see, to let them know that they can feel safe. So
Right.
diversifying the staff to reflect the pupils.
Diversifying the staff to reflect the pupils. How fucking insidious is that? I mean, how insidious is that to suggest that that's something that needs to be done going forward in order to achieve progress? So there is a never-ending influx of brown and black and whatever else people coming into the country who in turn have children here. And those children start to grow up in a historically, predominantly Scottish/white area. As a result of that, as a consequence of that, all the schools, etc., the doctors, the police, they're all going to be white or Scottish, okay? But when we're speaking specifically about schools, what we need to start to do in order to make the brown and the black pupils, the newcomers, feel included and accepted and at one with Scotland, we need to start to replace the white teachers with people who look like the brown and black newcomers. Instead of encouraging assimilation, integration, and I dare I say, telling these people to man the fuck up and face the reality of the fact you moved to Scotland. You know, we can't do that though. It's just fucking. Oh, I don't know. That to me is just it's nonsense. Just so to reflect the students. You moved to Scotland. What do you expect? I mean, this is what annoys me so fucking much. But anyway,
children learn the disadvantages of racism so that they can avoid it. The school should promote different cultures, so that they can. Slide, Leanne, please.
Oh man, I don't know. I'm rough. Oh,
earlier on, I talked about promoting anti-racism together in education. So this is it took place this year. I just put some pictures from Party 22, which was last year's one. So this is a yearly, an annual event that takes place. And there's a showcase that takes place. There are workshops for pupils, workshops for the teachers as well. And it's just it's a lovely experience for the children to come in and learn from one another, with one another, and there's an opportunity for staff to learn as well. And so this is a couple of pictures from that. And then if we go on to the next slide, there is a wee video of a boy that attended, just a wee short one.
It's important to talk about racism because you're not born with racism, you're taught it. So if we all learn that it's a bad thing and it's wrong, our future generations are going to know not to do it, and it's not going to exist in the future. So if history doesn't want to repeat itself, we should try and eliminate the bad.
Okay, I just thought that was a nice wee.
Oh, you did.
You know, thing.
I thought that was a nice wee video of a wee boy that we've indoctrinated. You know. He says that we learn racism apparently. But this is the laugh of the entirety of the whole fucking premise of this. They're introducing these topics to children that never would have given it a second thought because of the ages that they were at. You know, they're literally bringing these training materials into nurseries. They said it themselves. They're attempting it with nursery age children. They're going into primary schools where the little children have only just started learning how to walk properly and talk properly, etc. They probably can't even string more than a couple of sentences correctly in their wee textbook yet. But yet, you know, they're going to sit them down and they're going to introduce the topic of racial literacy to them. You know, they themselves are the ones that are introducing the topic. So dare I say, they're the ones that are responsible for any learning, or quote unquote, that these children in turn do. The reality of the matter is, I think from the age of like 3 or 4 years of age, children already have the cognitive ability to be able to sort of distinguish between like the differences between like a white and a black or whatever. You know, it's just like a fact. It's not racism. It's just a fact. Racism is learned. It means learn. Define racism. That's always a good one. Get them to define racism. Again, it's a very multifaceted, quote-unquote, complex issue nowadays. Never used to be, but they've made it so in order to justify this shit. Why is any of this stuff being taught in schools? Why is this a never-ending shit show in our schools? Why is this constantly on top of the agenda in Scottish schools? Why? Now you will hear some arguments that that's because of all the immigration, you know, so to quell any tensions. Well, I mean, again, though, like maybe people should be looking at the elephant in the room. They're not fucking importing people. Why does everybody else need to change to accommodate people that we didn't want here in the first place? But regardless, I don't really get into any of that. I'm just saying it's just they're introducing these topics to children. They're sitting there telling children about white privilege, white fragility, white supremacy, microaggressions, unconscious bias, discrimination, racism, etc., etc., etc. All of these nonsensical fucking concepts, most of which don't even exist. They're introducing this to children, and then they take a back seat and celebrate the fact when the children sort of reaffirm the shit they've been taught. It's fucking evil. It is evil. And it actually is a detriment to brown and black kids as well to sort of promote the concept that they're eternal victims and whatnot, and they're held back by the system. But it's equally as egregious to continuously promote this nonsense to little white children that, first and foremost, they're not native to their own land anymore, you know, but second of all, that they, as a result of the society that's been propped up around their white supremacy, they're forever going to be sort of privileged and favorited, or not favorited, what's the word I'm looking for? Prioritized, you know, so they have to feel eternal shame and guilt and grovel and pander, all under the name of equity, which they disguise as equality. It is fucked up, though. Parents' rights. Don't get me started on parents' rights, by the way. That's another subject I've made many a video on.
That boy had said, and I thought it was quite powerful. He said, so he came along to Party 22, and I think it was a reflection of the day that like, you know, the children and the young people that came along, they are looking for change, they are pushing for change, they want it to happen, and so I think we have to keep doing all these.
They're looking for change and they're pushing for change, you know. The children are looking for change and pushing for change. Now let me pose a simple question here. Do you think any of the children that they're referring to would be looking for any change and or pushing for any change had they not been introduced to this shit in the first place? No. Same principle was applicable back in the day with all the climate nonsense. You know, it was according to the United Nations Children's Rights Charter. One of their rights is for the government to listen to children and take their views on board and take them seriously when it comes to policy and decision making. They have a right to be listened to. And what did we get? Totally organic protests up and down the UK, across Europe, etc., courtesy of the autist Greta Thunberg, whatever. And what did we get as a result of that? Children in Scotland demanding imminent action on climate change. And what did we get as a result of that? Nicola Sturgeon declaring a climate emergency. So again, I would pose the question, do you really think any of these children would have been standing there with placards reiterating what they were what they'd learned in their textbooks in the classroom and whatnot, had they not been introduced to said topics? You politicize children, you politically groom children, and then and then they take a step back and they self-congratulate when the children literally just regurgitate what they've been taught to say. They're children. And this is the point. This fucking point. No. Oh man, that's what I hate it. I fucking hate it. I just hope that over time parents just start to wake the fuck up to this. I mean, I've got skin in the game to a certain extent, but I mean, even before I had a son, this stuff still bothered me. Why am I getting bothered on behalf of other people's kids? They should be fucking bothered. And I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, and I think for a lot of the cases, they just don't have a clue that this is going on. You know? But I mean, see, I just cannot, for the life of me, understand how people cannot see this for what it is. And I'm not talking about anybody that's watching this now or at a later date. I'm talking about, in general, some normie called Bob who works at Tesco's. If he fired that little clip on there and then listened to the woman speaking about it after the fact, it wouldn't click in their fucking head that the child has just literally regurgitated what he's been taught to think. This is political grooming. This is no different to a nonce grooming a child. No different.
These things that we're doing to meet their needs, to meet the need that they have for change to happen. And so if we look onto the next slide, then we can see what's happening there. So we're now running anti-racism conversation sessions, which take place in the city chambers. So we run a primary session and a secondary session.
So Glasgow City Chambers hosts primary school anti-racist conversations. Glasgow's council chambers. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know that occurred. I had absolutely no idea. I shouldn't be too surprised, obviously, given the fact that Graham Campbell's a member of the Glasgow Council, so is that fuckhead Susan Aitken. But I mean, Glasgow City Council hosts anti-racist conversation sessions with primary schools. I don't know. I really don't know the fuck I'm supposed to say at this point. I really don't know. That's mental. That is mental.
And what happens with that is this year we've ran 3, well, we're just about to go into our 3rd session, which is after the Easter holidays. And these are run for young people, they're run by young people. So they come and they share and they talk to one another, they lead what we put together for them, they get the opportunity to discuss change, to focus on different parts of the charter. So the last time we were there, we were talking about the recording and reporting aspect of the anti-racism charter and whether they think that's effective enough, the way that it's working within the schools, and should there be other ways for them to report a racist incident. And there was a lot of ideas that came up. So for example, one of the young people had said that they thought there should be maybe a QR code. So if they've got their iPads, they could just be able to report it via this QR code. So then that would maybe eliminate some of the stress of having to actually approach someone and talk about it. If they could do it that way, then that's an easier way for them to do it. It would kind of de-stress the whole situation. And then there was talking about like the restorative conversations afterwards and what they should be like, and you know how aware should they be of what's happening. You know, with we're going to let them kind of run with it themselves to that, because they're going to write their own kind of report of what they're doing and how they can move forward with that. How they
Jesus Christ, Jesus fucking Christ! I've had enough of that shite. Truly. I'll put that like just so I can have a wee look at that slide. Present, share screen. Let me see. There we go, boy. So this was like some of the stuff I was trying to look at earlier on, but I was struggling. I'm pretty sure I've got a video of that on my channel somewhere. Anti-racism charter. Oh my god! Look at this. Oh my god! Wow. Can I like fucking? That's weird. Promote a rights-based culture to learning and well-being, understanding racism in the context of getting it right for every child. Ensure processes for reporting, recording, monitoring, and dealing with racism. Engage in necessary reflection upon our assumptions and biases, our racial and social identities. Oh my god. Oh my god, man. I don't know. That stuff's just that one's really mental to me. That like the council itself is hosting these events. It's just I don't fucking hell. Consider what a culturally responsive curriculum looks like. Explore the anti-racism charter and resources to support the aims of the charter. Oh man, I don't know. They do have a QR code though, if anybody's wanting it. Like, I sure as hell don't want it at this time of night. Yeah, I think that'll do on that regard. Let's stick about for another fucking 10 minutes or so, just to catch up. Obviously, there's still some people watching. See what people have been saying. That's just really don't know. Where are we? Hamza, I imagine you've been saying, what? I do feel sorry for Hamza. He's just been used as an angry baby and held up that comedy Trojan. I struggle with Hamza Yusuf for the fact that he has said on so many different occasions that, oh, I'm Scottish, and or he's made reference to being told to go home multiple times. And then he uses this as a means to sort of suggest that he's got no other home. He's Scottish, you know, born and bred Scottish. But yet there's literally fucking videos of him on the internet where he says himself that he sees himself as Scottish and Pakistani for a start. And then simultaneously says he's the son of Pakistan soil. I mean, if there was an argument for blood and soil nationalism, then Hamza Yusuf is your man. The son of Pakistan soil. Jesus. Pretty sure if I said that about myself in a Scottish context, I would be, according to him anyway, a far-right bigot. But it's fine for him to say it. Absolutely fine for him to say it. So I struggle to sympathise with him whatsoever. He's obviously just another guy who is born in a country that's foreign to him, and he's decided to play the political game to try and change things to benefit his own people. Can you fault him for that? Well, however, he can fucking go and do it somewhere else, as far as I'm concerned. Let me see. He was encouraged to stick his neck out as a fake racist victim, then humiliatingly removed and replaced as a boss by the very whites he was encouraged to speak out against. SNP footprints in his face. I think, though, I don't really know like the ins and outs of the backstage shit that was going on with him and the Greens and whatnot, but I think that the writing was on the wall for them anyway. The SNP were in dire straits due to all the skullduggery that was going on and still is going on with Sturgeon and that questionably gay husband of hers. And I think that to then in turn install Hamza Yusuf, or if anybody they could have picked, they put Hamza Yusuf in to replace Sturgeon when they're already hanging by a thread. That was the most disastrous fucking thing they could have done. And I mean, it did raise the questions back in the day, if I remember rightly. Like, are they doing this on purpose? I really don't know. It started to look like this implosion was, at least to some degree, completely manufactured by themselves or by the state and whatnot, which they were like complicit in, as opposed to this just being an unfortunate chain of events. Even the way that they went about treating him versus Kate Forbes, you know, she was berated for her political views and whatnot. Hamza Yusuf was never really spoken to about his, you know. It's all right for a Christian. It's all right for a Muslim, but it's not right for a Christian. I don't know. I don't have any sympathy for him. I think he's a bit of a dickhead, to be honest. But as for the white supremacists in the SNP, I mean, I'm assuming you're just being facetious there, for a comedic effect. I mean, there's absolutely no white supremacists in the SNP that I can think of anyway, unless some of their members on the quiet are. But from what I can tell, the SNP, especially in the last 20, 30 years, and bear in mind, I'm only in my 20s myself, so I'm speaking explicitly from like stuff that I've looked at, and you know, you can see the sort of transition with the SNP over the years, of course, of the past 20, 30 years especially, but even more so in the last like 10 years or so. Like they don't even consider themselves to be nationalists anymore. They've disavowed the term multiple occasions. They call themselves internationalists. Anybody can be Scottish. Absolutely anybody can be Scottish. It's not even civic nationalism. It's just total fucking wet wipery as far as I'm concerned. Their conference a few years ago, they adopted a motion that banned ethno-nationalism, amongst other things. So they're Scottish nationalists apparently, but yeah, anybody can be Scottish and you're not allowed to be an ethno-nationalist. Bit weird. You know. Could go on now, but let me see. Glasgow's I'd say. Aye. Yeah, it is. Glasgow's bad. Really bad. I think one of the most grotesque things that I recall from the last few years, as far as Glasgow's concerned, is the fact that Graham Campbell, the fucking Jamaican guy, I mean, he dresses like a Jamaican. He's the SNP guy, dresses like a Jamaican, but yet he's English, while simultaneously says he's Scottish. Everybody knows who he is, but he got a motion passed in the Glasgow Council a few years ago for Glasgow to annually accept and acknowledge Stephen Lawrence Day. They have an annual Stephen Lawrence Day in Glasgow, in the same city that Chris Donald was murdered. I mean, that's fucked. That's just mental. Truly mental. You know? They even invited Baroness Kennedy up that year when they first agreed on the motion. A city where a wee white boy was murdered by Pakistanis, and you're sitting there fucking celebrating and remembering some black kid from England that like had absolutely nothing to do with Glasgow. I mean, it's just backwards. Totally fucking backwards. Oh, man. Let me see. Talking this point, well, I mean, yeah, you're no wrong in terms of talking. It's kind of pointless. Like, in many respects, it's pointless. But at the same time, well, there's not many alternatives that remain at this point in time. You know what I mean? Even saying the wrong thing online can potentially get you fucking arrested at this point. You know, if you go out and burn and loot and whatnot, you just get fucking jailed or whatever the case may be. There's no political solution as far as I'm concerned. Like, you're not voting your way out of this shit. I think one of the best methods, for now anyway, that you do have at your disposal is being able to sort of try and, as cliche as it sounds, wake up the normies, you know? And I don't mean like the apolitical normies. I'm talking about somebody who might be a bit disgruntled. Well, then fucking they might be the sort of person you might be able to converse with. But I think that's like, it would be a bit silly to suggest that, you know, you're going to change the world by simply adopting that method. That's not obviously feasible. I wouldn't say talking is completely pointless. Anyway, let me see. Let me see what the people say. It's appropriation. I think you're talking about Hamza Yusuf. I don't fucking know. I think to be honest, if you're referring to Hamza Yusuf saying that he's debating and leaving the country, I just think that's all the bullshit. I don't think he's planning on going anywhere. Hamza Yusuf is very, very, very good at playing into the idea, and they've been doing this for a while. Not just him, but like in general, they're trying to construct a narrative that Islamophobia is rife. The far right bigots are everywhere, and Islamophobia is a rife, dangerous, serious problem. So of course you're going to get people like Hamza Yusuf coming out going, "I'm really scared. You know, life's so shit. I'm really scared." I mean, is he fuck? I don't really believe it, to be honest. You know, but time will tell. I don't know. Can't say. That's just my opinion on the matter anyway. But anyway, saying you know, so yeah, boy. I'm in my 20s, mate. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. Yeah, still in my 20s. Yeah. For now, only a few years left, but for now, I'm still in my 20s. Yeah. Why the SNP LARPing as a nationalist party? See, like if you go back to their origins, like they were very much like an organic nationalist movement, just like every other organic nationalist movement, past or present, sorry. And it gets usurped and subverted. You know, the SNP back in those days were kind of, what was his name again? Was it Donald? I can't remember his name. It's Donald something. Like the party leader at the time, he was affiliated with the Hitler's regime, shall we say? Oh, like talk about trying to bury their history, Donald, what's his name? Donald Common? I can't really remember it. But regardless, like there's photos of him like with the Hitler Youth and whatnot. And then over time they sort of became a bit more like conservative. And then by like the 60s going into the 70s, they were sort of still conservative, but this is where like the S&P 79 group came into the fray, where they were sort of subverted slightly from within, or there was attempts to subvert them from within to change them to a more like left-wing stance. And around about this time, their opinion changed on the EEC, which then became the EU. They went from opposing remaining in the EEC for all of the reasons that everybody opposed being in the fucking EU today. And then over time, they've changed their opinion on that. They've become very left-wing, shall we say. And they're very much pro-EU, etc. So yeah, they're just basically a hijacked nationalist party. But the problem that seems to go completely unnoticed is that like, nobody seems to notice it. Or if they do notice it, they just embrace the crap that they come out with. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. How can you stand there and proclaim to care about Scotland while you're waving rainbow flags? And it's just not for me. It's fucking retarded. It's just retarded. Yeah. Sorry. Sturgeon did say that. I've got the clips on my channel full enough. But I mean, I could spend all night going on and on and on about that fucking bitch. Yeah, but to make reference again to this S&P 79 group, the front runner, the guy who was sort of spearheading this subversive charge back in the day, was Alex Salmond. Yeah. The fat guy that seems to kind of never get addressed anymore. Everybody seems to think that he's like the voice of reason in Scottish nationalism in the modern era, when in reality the matter is that he set the wheels in motion for the destruction of the SNP as we now know it today. Some of the things that he put in place, Sturgeon just continued rolling with, such as the National Performance Framework. I'm not going to bore people with this crap. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. Any more comments for a fuck off? Like, adios, buddy. I'm gonna fuck off soon myself. Like, I don't really trust any election, to be honest, but I think they're all rigged to a certain extent. I don't necessarily think that they ensure that a certain amount of votes goes to a certain amount, or whatever. But I do think that outcomes are to a certain extent predetermined. And on top of that, it doesn't really matter who you vote for because they're all pretty much the same anyway. And that's not even a hot take. It's not even something that really requires any like proof. It's kind of observable. Nothing really changes. Nothing has really changed in my lifetime since I've been conscious of my surroundings. Nothing really. But, keeps people taking over, keeps them happy. Or at the very bare minimum, deludes them into thinking they've got a choice in the matter. But I don't think it's as simplistic as that. Anyway, I think if there's nothing else like question-wise or whatnot, I will fuck off there because I've been shading for quite a while. But let me see what's left there. Yeah, boy. Right. Love you and leave yous until next time. Bye-bye.